All right, so in this video, we're going to be talking about belief and change. Being part of leadership and part of the office, there's going to be always change. We're always going to be wanting to grow, wanting to improve, but with that comes a certain amount of psychological, I want to call it baggage, but there's resistance to wanting to change. It's true with myself and probably true with you and your team as well, that anytime I want to move forward, there's this reluctance to maybe want to do so. And some of the reason might be is because, well, what kind of worked yesterday or the past week, month, year, or kind of the way we've always been doing things seems to have worked okay. So why deviate from that? Because, if we go do something else, that may not work. And so there is this reluctance for us to want to try new things or to grow or to experiment and so forth. But in order to grow, we have to intentionally move forward. And so this short presentation is going to be going over things to look for in your team, but also in yourself, because I know this is something I look at within myself when I'm trying to go through a change or going through an improvement, to know where am I in this whole idea as far as being motivated to actually move forward. So let's go through and kind of see what are some of the things, just kind of conceptualize as we're going through uh, what you're going to be doing in a leadership position. Let's first of all take a look at this kind of individual. We're going to compare and contrast two different situations. This person has a belief that I can. They have a can-do type of attitude. Now they proceed not knowing how, but they just figure that they will figure it out. And so they start off wanting to improve and they run into an obstacle. Okay, they handle that. Then they run into another obstacle, or maybe it's the same obstacle. They're going to just try to fix it another way. But then they run into another obstacle, and they could run into several obstacles before eventually they find their way around the obstacle or through it, and then they get higher up towards whatever it is the goal that they're seeking. And then they continue on, and they will hit more obstacles, obviously, as they keep going. But this one just kind of keeps going and going in hopes that, in anticipation that they're going to actually overcome the obstacle and get closer towards their goal. Contrast that with this kind of person. They start off with a disbelief of I can't, okay, or this won't work. They proceed, yes, they go ahead and move forward, maybe because you as the leader or me as the owner says, yeah, we need to move forward on something. And they say, okay, fine, if you're the boss, then I guess that's what we're going to do. But they proceed reluctantly and cautiously. But then as soon as they hit a obstacle, a roadblock, something that's difficult that comes up, what do they start thinking? Or what do I start thinking? What do you start thinking? We all can do this. We run into an obstacle. If we really weren't that sold on the idea to begin with, we really weren't that motivated, we can easily say, well, it's not worth it. Or, this, it won't work. Or I really wasn't expecting this. Or this is too much of too much to handle, too much of a hassle. And so we, easily just drop out and just like, we're not going to continue on because, well, we don't want to handle any more obstacles. Because obviously this isn't working. What this person gets to conclude was at the beginning, they said, I can't. And when they go through this whole thing where they run into an obstacle and, all that stuff, then they can come to the end of their conclusion and say, see, I was right. It can't be done. And then they're just stuck. You can see how this would just lead to stagnation and just not moving forward at all. Things just kind of being flat. When someone is stuck with an I can't type of attitude or it won't work kind of attitude, it's almost like they would want to see it not work so they could be proven right. Okay. Obviously, that's not the way we want to do it. So we want to do more of this and not really much of this at all. But people are interesting. They kind of fall across a spectrum. It isn't just a black and white can't do versus can do. We all kind of fall upon a spectrum. Maybe it could be the subject that we're talking about or the change that we're wanting to do and what could be at risk in doing this. We could all fall across the spectrum of can't do versus can do. The person way over here in the end, they're going to quickly come up with a list of obstacles. And just like we went over just a moment ago, they're going to conclude that it won't work. And so they just arms folded. They are not going to move forward. That is just kind of the way it is. And they're not really going to want to budge at all. Then you can have someone who's maybe not as bad, but they're kind of still in this can't do side of things. And they have a bunch of questions. Okay, well, what about this? And what if that? And they have all these different things that could come up as a potential reason maybe not to do something. But, if they had all their questions answered, well, then they would be moving forward with the whole idea. Again, probably reluctantly, but at least they would be entertaining the thought of moving forward. Further down this spectrum, become this person, also arise with questions. But instead of just being a question generating machine, they actually come up with questions, but then they also, in addition, they start coming up with potential answers. They're very creative. They might be even a little optimistic. They start wondering through, well, we could do this or we could do that. Or they start coming up with different scenarios on how to move forward. Now, they haven't moved forward yet, but at least they are entertaining the thought of moving forward. So this, is getting better and better. And then you have here on the kind of the far end, people who just jump right in and think they're going to figure it out on the way. And this is kind of where we're leaning towards. This is where we're going to be moving towards. We want people to have more towards this green side and less towards this red side. But whenever we want to make a change somewhere along this spectrum, it's kind of like this. I'm sure you've seen this experiment where you have water here, a bucket of water that is at room temperature. If you didn't have your fingers in any of these buckets, you walked right in and put your hand inside this bucket of water, it would just feel like regular warm, regular room temperature water. If, however, you came in first and you put your hand in the ice water, you held it there for about a minute or so, and then you moved your hand over immediately and put it into the room temperature water, this would feel hot. Okay. If you put your hand over here, hopefully, we're not talking boiling water. This little cartoon is just supposed to represent hot water. Put your hand in hot water, hot tub water type thing, and then you hold it there for a minute or two, and then you move it over and put it into the room temperature water. Well, obviously that would feel cold compared to where you were. So if you're somewhere along this spectrum, moving from here to here to here to here, it's going to feel, even a movement from here to here is going to feel hot or cold or whatever it is, very different from the position that they were at. So just realize that all of us are going to be along this spectrum, and when we're trying to make that leap forward, trying to pull us towards this can-do type of situation, that it's going to feel like it's a lot for you or for your team members when you're trying to lead them towards a can-do type of situation. The last little cartoons, I guess, that I'll kind of put up here is this analogy I heard one time. It's kind of like if you're swinging through the jungle, you can just go ahead and grab a vine and swing, and you're just going to grab the next vine that's available as you're moving towards, your destination. You can do it that way. Or you could instead just kind of stay sitting right over here, contemplating, well, which vine should I take? And if I do take a vine, would it even be worth it? The people who sit there and don't really do anything, they don't really accomplish anything. So the final one right here is we want to do less of this standing around contemplating, arms folded, wanting all of our questions answered before we move forward. We instead want to do more of this. Let's just go ahead and take the leap. Okay. We're going to make mistakes. There's going to be things that are going to be lost along the way, lessons to be learned, but it's far better to be moving forward when doing something rather than sitting around waiting for everything to be just perfect to make that leap. So for you and for your team, be ready to take the leap. All right, take care.